Today you have options. One, you can watch the video and draft the writing that you're going to be doing this week for our summative quiz grade. You can do it all by yourself, not watch my video, and just draft it out if that's what you choose to do. Or if you know you need like way more support, you can also choose to come work with me, whatever works. So on the front, if you are doing this via video, write your name. Boom, boom, boom. Next thing we're going to be looking at is the quote section. So we're specifically writing an analysis on the religious characters in the Canterbury Tales. You see right here, it says you only have to pick two. There's three options, the nun, the monk, or the friar, and you will pick two. So if you choose, let's say, the nun and the friar, you're not putting anything in this monk area. Okay, you're only filling out quotes for the character that you want to do. So if we're looking to find information that shows that Chaucer is using satire and humor to critique and call out the Catholic Church, we're going to be coming to the nun or the monk or the friar, whoever you choose, and finding two quotes that support this kind of like a jokey banter that's also calling the church out simultaneously. So if we are looking here, our annotation should already have everything you need because we specifically looked for how she was different. So the nun cared about how she looked. Her manners were more about the outside appearance and serving God. She was wearing red lipstick, right? So you're going to pick two of these quotes that you feel like are like the biggest red flags that work against the nun being a proper representation of the Catholic Church. So for me personally, let's say we are going to pick this first one. And again, you can pick whatever you feel like you will analyze best. Let's pretend that we're doing, she was certainly very entertaining, pleasant and friendly in her ways. Right here, this line 141, 142, and 143. So I'm going to put lines 141 through 143, and then I'm going to write the quote out. She certainly was very entertaining, pleasant, and friendly in her ways. So that is number one. And then for quote number two, I am going to use her appearance. Specifically, her mouth was very small but soft and red, and she was indeed by no means undergrown. So that is going to be lines 155, 156, so 157, and line 160. You can pick any of this. This is just what I'm using for the example. Open quotes. Her mouth was very small but soft and red. And then I'm also going to squeeze in, she was indeed by no means undergrown. Okay? Then we're going to come over to the friar and do the exact same thing for the friar. Maybe you're doing the monk. You could pick him. So if we're looking here, we got all this stuff right here. We're going to pick right here about him lying, being qualified from the Pope to hear confession. So quote one for the friar is lines 224, 23, and 22. So lines 224 or 222 to 224. And we are going to go ahead and put open quotes, for he was qualified to hear confessions, or so he said. With more than priestly scope. He had a special license from the Pope. Okay, so you can be fast forwarding me after you find and write your quotes. You do not have to sit here and watch what I am doing. You can do your own. If you feel like you need to watch, cool. If you don't. So then I'm going to use the knowing the bars. That's line 240, 41, 42, 43, 44. That's line 244 through 245. Right down here in this area, he knew the taverns well in every town. Open your quotes. He knew the taverns well in every town. And then on the next page it says, and every innkeeper and barmaid too. Okay, so when you're done finding your 4 quotes, go ahead, turn the page. Your whole writing is going to be built off these 4 quotes. So the next thing you're going to do, keeping these quotes in mind, you are going to write a hook. A hook is a 1-sentence like attention grabber to make me be like, oh my God, I want to read this so bad. They're so smart, so genius. This is going to be amazing. If you think about social media, when you're scrolling, you know how fast you scroll. Like you can literally not even watch 4 seconds of a video before you scroll. If you don't stop on a video, it's because you didn't care about the hook. There was nothing that visually hooked you or orally hooked you or with text on screen hooked you. So you just keep on going, right? So same thing for this. For whoever's grading your writing, which would be me, which could be somebody in another class, a college professor, whatever. If you do not hook them in that first sentence, they're not interested in what you're writing. Like you get graded harder when you have a bad hook because the person goes into grading feeling like this is literally so boring, right? So you want to have a good hook that stops and grabs attention. The hook can say whatever you feel like grabs attention. I'm going to make a example. Let's see. If I were trying to hook myself, what would I say? I would say, though the Canterbury Tales is a classic from the Middle Ages, it seems Chaucer's, I was about to say Chaucer's characters, but I'm going to make sure I'm specific and I say Chaucer's religious characters are spawned from modern individuals such as blank and blank. Here for blank and blank, I would put 2 like individuals who are known for being like obsessed with money and always in the drama and lying and dressing nicely. So like, I don't know, I could put Cardi B. Does she spell her name with a K? I have to Google this. Cardi B and then somebody else. Cardi B. Cardi with a C. I'm making stuff up. Don't listen to me. Cardi. Boop. And who is some other person? I'm just going to put Offset because we're talking about Cardi B. Okay? Easy. So you see how this is a hook? It's an attention grabber. If I was sitting down reading literally 100 essays while grading and somebody said something that connected Chaucer to the modern times and said that these characters were like Cardi B and Offset, I would be like, how? Now I have to read this, right? So you want to grab their attention. You can't copy mine. You can't steal mine, but you can do something similar to it or something entirely of your own. So boom, now our hook is done. And we're moving into the tag, the title, author, and genre. For me, if you look, I already included Canterbury Tales, a classic from the Middle Ages, and Chaucer's name. I'm going to do it a second time because it's required in the tag, but low key, if I were writing this, I could also skip it because I kind of mentioned it already. So I'm going to say the Canterbury Tales is a frame story by Geoffrey Chaucer that gives readers a snapshot of medieval society. If you're like, wow, how did you know that? It's because I'm literally taking information from our introduction. If you come back to here, you're going to pull a couple things from here to include in your tag in your intro. It says write one sentence that gives the reader a snippet of information about what we are reading about and what you'll be writing about. So we want the title, the author, the genre, and background information. So this is just one sentence that includes these things. The Canterbury Tales is a frame story. So I got the title, author, and genre. Frame story is our genre. The Canterbury Tales is our title, Geoffrey Chaucer. And then I put a snippet of background information just saying that we're getting a snapshot of early medieval society. So then boom, you have your tag, and it's one little thing about medieval society or the Middle Ages or something like that. And now you're moving into background information. Right here, we're going to do 1 to 2 sentences digging into the purpose that Chaucer wrote the Canterbury Tales, and then explain in one sentence why Chaucer would care to write about this or how he chose to bring attention to this, though most people would not. So for the background information, we need 2 sentences. I am going to, we already said the title, we already said the author, we already said the genre. I said that he was giving us a snapshot of medieval society. So if we come to here, what else could we do? We could mention a pilgrimage, long religious journey. We could also mention that Chaucer wrote the Canterbury Tales in spring, and spring is a symbol for rebirth and awakening, and he's bringing attention to some negative things with the Catholic Church. So maybe he's saying that the church needs a rebirth, that the church needs a refresh, right? That's what he could be saying. There's literally a gnat, and I thought it was a roach. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. Maybe we could mention that there was 29 characters. So let's see what we come up with. 1 to 2 sentences, and we said we could mention pilgrimage, rebirth, awakening, any of those things. So how many people, we want to be specific, 29 characters in the Canterbury Tales. I'm writing it short. In the Cant Tales are going on a pilgrimage during the month of spring. Background sentence number 1. And then, was this common for people to speak out about religion and what was going on in England during the Middle Ages? And then we can say that Chaucer speaks out about the corruption of the Catholic Church in these tales, which was uncommon. Okay? So now if we're putting these, who is this? If we're putting all of this together, right? We already have our quotes. We're saving those for later. We have our hook, our tag, and our background information. So this will be our first paragraph essentially. So I'm going to read it so you hear how it sounds all together with all the pieces so far, and then read yours and make sure it flows the same way as mine does. Though the Canterbury Tales is a classic from the Middle Ages, it seems Chaucer's religious characters are spawned from modern individuals such as Cardi B and Offset. The Canterbury Tales is a frame story by Geoffrey Chaucer that gives readers a snapshot of medieval society. The 29 characters in the Canterbury Tales are going on a pilgrimage during the month of spring. See? I could say during the season of spring or during the month of April. Chaucer speaks out about the corruption of the Catholic Church in these tales, which was uncommon at the time. So boom, that's what we got so far. Next, we're going to be transitioning into our analysis. And I actually left something off here, which is important, and that is our thesis and claims. So come back to this background information. Dang, we're missing a whole page. You're going to have to make your own little space down here. Go ahead and write thesis plus claims. So now this really important part. A thesis is one sentence, not two, one sentence that takes a stance on what you are going to write about and then mentions what your claims are, what your pieces of information that are going to prove your point are, okay? So for us, we're saying that Chaucer is writing about corruption in the Catholic Church. We just said that in the background information. But now we have to highlight something about this that's more relevant than just saying Chaucer is writing about corruption. So I want to point out that Chaucer specifically is doing this using satire, using humor, using comedy, and using storytelling, right? He's not just going up front of an audience and saying, hey guys, the Catholic Church is corrupt. They're wild. They're doing this. They're doing that. Like, he's not just going and like hollering, right? This essentially would kind of be like, I guess, posting about it because he's writing this down. The story is not real. He's making these things up and he's using humor and satire and comedy to bring attention to the corruption of the Catholic Church without directly calling them out. So I have to try to formulate that into a sentence and then with my claims include that he specifically does this with the nun and the friar because their quotes are going to be part of this proof for us, right? And this, for me, saying the satire and humor and blah, 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 I am going to say Chaucer pokes fun at religion during the Middle Ages in England, because that's where he's at, specifically by infusing satire and irony into the descriptions of the nun and the friar. So boom. All of these are going to go in order when you go to officially type them. You're going to have your hook, your tag and your intro, your background information, and then your thesis. After that, you're transitioning into your analysis, and your first set of analysis is going to be on one of these characters. So mine's going to be on the nun and on the friar. So here, your job in the analysis area is to take the notes that we have, which for us point out how people are supposed to act. Okay, remember we had AI help us kind of get this list. So the nun should be focused on serving God, not what people think. She should be serving others. She should be quiet. She should be dainty, right? She should be 100% committed to serving God, and instead she is doing ABC, right? So in this section, we're going to want to do a few things. I'm not writing a whole paragraph. I'm introducing what you're going to be doing, and then you'll fill yours out. So we'll say the nun, or whatever character you used, is a blank. Give her a word. A sassy, a cute, a, I can't think of a word, a different, like some kind of word to describe them. A blank individual who should or who ought to behave and blank. Explain how the nun should act, or the monk should act, or the friar should act. And then we're going to want to say, however, Chaucer's nun blank. And then say something about her. How does she really act? And then we're going to say the text says, and then you put your first quote. And you close your quotes and you write what lines it was from. After this, you have to write one sentence explaining how that is odd, how that is off. So explain / elaborate about why that's off, or a red flag, or why Chaucer brings this up. Okay, and then you can say later she is described as, or later the text says, now you're going to put your second quote, you're going to put your line numbers, and then again you're going to do the same thing. You're going to explain or elaborate or show why Chaucer brought this up. Why he brought this up / exposed the church. When you're done with this, you're going to do the exact same thing for your analysis too, but for the other character, for the friar. So you're doing the exact same thing, except this time you're saying the other person's name. So last time we say the nun. This time you can say a second character we meet is the friar, who is known for his lies and Infidelities. Infidelities. I spelled that so wrong. That is actually crazy. Don't tell anybody. And then we can say, while friars ought to blank, how should they act? This is in your notes. How should he act? This individual is said to quote. You already have that quote, so you're coming over here, boom, quote of whatever it says, and then the line numbers. Again, explain, elaborate, connect the dots. Here, I should be going, oh, they so smart. Oh, I didn't even realize that. Okay. And then we will say, shockingly, it gets worse. The text says, quote, and then again, lines, and then explain, elaborate, and mic drop, because you are now ending your one pager. Put these all together, and you should have at least one page for our one pager. So you have your hook, you have your tag and your intro, you have your background information, analysis 1 with 2 quotes, analysis 2 with 2 quotes, and then your final draft is going to be putting all of this together on a Google Doc that will be posted for you guys. And this is our summative one pager. You're going to make sure you have all of these things. If you walked through this step by step by step, when we get to the rubric, it should be really easy. So we're going to create a two-part title. Two-part title we'll look at specifically tomorrow when I'm doing the mini conferencing with you guys. This is how I'm going to grade you based off your hook. If it's missing or it's irrelevant, like it says, I love dogs, and this has nothing to do with dogs, you would get a 1. If it's off topic and is like not really that engaging, you would get a 2. If the hook is there and it's relevant, but it's not like, oh my God, this is so good, you would get a 3. If it's engaging and original and grabs me, you would get a 4. Then you go down to your next section. You have all of these things, the title, author, genre. Just because you have the title and author and genre doesn't mean you already get a 4. Maybe you're going to get a 3. Maybe there's a little error. Maybe you said that this is by an unknown author. That would be an error, so you would get a lower score. But you literally have to look at the rubric, because y'all love just typing something up and assuming since it's done, when it's half done or not excellently done, it is just developing or proficient, that you're going to get 100. But that's not how summative things work, right? I'm going to go through each and every one of your one-pagers, read them, and then I'm going to come through and say, how was their hook? Was it snatching my soul, or was it mid? How was their tag? Ooh, it was perfect. How was their background information? It was kind of limited and raggedy. It wasn't great. It was a 2. So I'm literally using exactly this, no bias, just coming through, bing, bing, putting it is what it is. Over here, we'll have 2 quotes for your characters, 2 quotes for your characters. How your analysis was. Your analysis is that part after your quote. So right here where it says explain, elaborate, connect the dots, explain, elaborate, mic drop, explain the red flags, make me be like, oh my God, that is crazy. That's what your analysis is. Analysis just means going deeper under the surface than just saying Chaucer said they were bad. That's whack. That's bland, right? You're going below the surface and explaining the depth of this in connection to how a religious character ought to act, how people do not commonly talk about these things. They just kind of whisper about it. And Chaucer's over here like, I'm bringing it up. I'm talking about it and I'm publishing it, right? Then last one will be spelling, grammar, punctuation. This is usually where people lose points. If you want to run it through some kind of AI to proofread it for you, go ahead. If you want to run it through Grammarly, go ahead. If you're on Google Docs, you can go to the Google Docs spell check, but make sure that you are coming through and looking for errors, because this is always where people lose points, and this is what stops good writers from getting 100s would be this. The only way you're going to get 100 is if there are 0 errors in it. If you have a few errors, 2, 3, 4, 5, then you would get a 3. If you got more than 5 errors, we get in a 2. If you got so many that I'm like, I don't even know what you're saying, then you would get a 1. Right here, spelling, grammar, punctuation. When we are doing our quotes, this falls under this. Okay, pay attention. The text says, if you do not have a comma right here, it would be incorrect. Got to put that comma. You got to open your quotes. You write your quote. You do not put a period right here. You close your quotes. Then you put your lines. Then you put your period. Period. No period there. Yes, period here. This is how you properly do them. Comma, open quotes, lines, no period, yes, period. Okay? This would fall under that spelling, grammar, punctuation. I am so more than happy to help you with any of this, but you can't just come to me and be like, I don't get it. We're going to do mini conferencing, which is you bringing this paper up and saying, Ms. Tiger, can we look at this together before you start typing your final one? So we're going to come through and I'll say, ooh, we need to fix this. Let's erase this. Oh my God, your tag is amazing. Ooh, this thesis is donkey. We need to fix this, right? So we're going to come through. I'm not grading it for spelling, grammar, punctuation. I'm grading it for content, analysis, depth, and to make sure you have all of the steps. So at least you'll get guaranteed some points over here from the rubric, okay? So I'll look through this gently with you, like, come on, let's take a peek. Let's see what you've got. And then you will be responsible for making sure your analysis goes deeper and that you get it all typed up nice, gorgeous, and pretty for our summative writing that is going to be due on Friday.